Time to tantalize your earbuds with creative makers and shakers. It's Creative Living, the podcast with Jane Klaus.
Thanks for tuning in today. This is Creative Living, the podcast, and I'm Jane Klaus. Now, in my world of creativity, I have two mottos that I just love to use. And one is imagine, design, create. And the other is reuse, recycle, repurpose, refashion. I love, and I've said this a million times, to take something old and turn it into something new. And I love to turn trash into treasure. I think I was upcrafting before upcrafting was even cool. And I guess that means I'm pretty much into sustainability. And so is my guest today. I am super excited to welcome to the show this lovely lady. She is a fashion designer, owner of SAV NYC. She is passionate about upcycling. And when I met her, I just knew we needed to share her mission with you. I'm so happy to welcome to the show, Sara Vetzer. Hey, Sara.
Hi, Jane. I'm so excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite things, sustainability.
I think it's great. I want to talk all about you and sustainability and how everybody can help your mission, your cause. But before we jump into that, Sara, what does creativity mean to you?
Creativity is really the best way to express yourself and show your emotion, share like who you are with the world.
Have you always been creative?
I think so. Yes. I started sewing pretty early on. Always was in art classes. I definitely ran with the art kids in high school and all that good stuff.
Sara, you have such a passion for the environment. Where did that come from?
Oh, I think my family has instilled a love for nature in me from a young age. We would always take trips to national parks and watch the animals in our backyard. We have kind of like a forest area back there with a stream. And yeah, so I think my feelings like I need to save nature, care for it, nurture it, all stem from growing up around the appreciation for it.
When I was your age, probably, so you're like early 20s, right?
Yeah.
So when I was your age, we weren't thinking about eco-friendly, being green. We weren't recycling. We didn't have a separate garbage trash can for that. I
Right.
mean, like growing up in the 80s, I guess it wasn't part of, the fabric of my growing up. We got the first recycle bin when I was in high school, but this is something that you and your peers have always grown up with. So
Right.
is it a moment of I love nature and animals, or is it like I love the earth?
Honestly, it's a survival instinct, I think, at this point, because our generation is really the one that is the make or break. Like, we're either going to save the planet and everything's going to be okay, or we're not going to be able to make it happen. And there's going to be a lot of catastrophic stuff that's going to happen, in the years to come. So I feel like the urgency really stems from, yes, my love of the earth, my love of nature, but also its survival.
I mean, I think it's great. Do you find that you're pretty like-minded with your group of friends that you run with? Everybody's sort of on the same page?
I don't think I've totally found my group of sustainability friends. I think I am the sustainability friend in my friend group, if that makes sense. Like, I'm definitely the one who pushes for it and talks about it a lot. And I think my friends don't totally get it, but
Yeah, but you're leading the charge. So let's talk about that charge. What's happening in our landfills today?
no, nothing good. Lots
Well,
of waste being created all the time.
yeah, so I mean, and I want to go into the fashion world and the creating world
Yeah,
because we talk about what's happening in the landfills today. The majority of our old clothes end up in a landfill. Like 85% of our clothes end up in a landfill. You have a degree from FIT in New York in fashion design. Does the sustainability factor into your fashion and what's happening in the landfills?
absolutely. That's really where the sustainability obsession with me, started was at FIT. Right away, they started teaching us about the waste in the industry, and it was really eye-opening. I started my brand SAV NYC when I was in college, and I actually started by painting denim jackets that I found at secondhand stores. And the denim was a really meaningful entry point for me because it takes about 1,800 gallons of water to produce a pair of jeans. It takes about 700 gallons of water to produce a t-shirt. But so the denim, really, really high waste, specifically for denim. And so that was kind of an interesting point for me to start upcycling, because I knew that these denim jeans had created so much waste just to be produced. And here they are sitting in a secondhand store and may never get used. And if they don't get bought, then we're back to landfills. They get sent to the landfills and they're decaying and creating more greenhouse gases, more waste.
So from the beginning, just to create denim
Yep.
is a ton of pollution.
Yeah.
And then we wear them, and we know we love to wear our denim forever, right? Until it has rips and holes and like stains in the back pocket, and who cares? We keep wearing them. So we do extend the life of our denim a lot, but they'll end up in the landfill. Do you find that, I mean, there's so much in the landfills, but denim is one of those wasteful products that will then break down and cause harm to the universe.
Yeah, because that dye is just going to seep back in. And like you were saying, in the production, there's so much dye pollution just from dyeing the denim with the indigo. And so it's all going to break back down into the environment. And it's toxic stuff.
It's really toxic. So let's talk about that. Why is the fashion industry, and I love that you learned this because now you can teach us, why is the fashion industry such a powerful polluter?
It's hard to, I think the biggest problem is the single use mindset and the fast fashion mindset, because everyone feels the need to constantly be changing how they're dressing and constantly be wearing new things. Outfit repeating is not totally acceptable anymore, but it should be. And it's definitely coming back, and it's becoming more respected that we should have pieces in our closet that we wear all the time, outfits that we wear all the time. That single-use mindset that's kind of going on, where people think that it's shameful to be seen wearing the same thing more than once, I think that is a really important piece of the waste puzzle.
I think you're right. Absolutely. And when did that mindset change? Remember when I don't know if you remember, but I remember like you've got these 7 shirts and you've got these couple pairs of pants and this is what you wore. This is it. Now the closets are full, and that's because of fast fashion. And we're going to talk about slow fashion, which is what you're doing, but explain fast fashion. Is that a phenomenon because of social media and technology like TikTok?
That's an interesting way to look at it. That's definitely a big contributor. Yeah. Being on social media, showing all your new stuff. There's also that huge trend where you show all the new things that you bought. Like when you go shopping, when you shop online and you buy like 100 new things and it only costs $100. When you buy 100 things and it costs $100, that means that there are workers somewhere in a developing country who aren't getting paid a living wage to create those garments. So there's also like that lack of education. People don't understand the consequences to buying the really cheap clothing that they could get online and in fast fashion stores. And I think if people knew more about that, then they would care more and maybe steer away from it a little bit more.
So the goal is to create awareness that your purchases are causing a lot of harm, not only to the workers who are making them, but to the environment and to the industry as a whole.
It's just not cool. There's this image that it's cool to always be wearing something new and always be buying, consuming. But I think our mindset really needs to change.
I just have a couple of stats and then we're going to get into slow fashion.
Okay.
So the average item of clothing is worn only 14 times,
Mhm.
and the amount of clothing Americans discard is approximately doubled in the last 20 years, which again, I think goes back to trends and technology. And
Mhm.
maybe even some of the materials are faster and easier to create, like this fast fashion where you can buy clothes on your social media streams. You could get things delivered to your house, and because you know how to sew, they're not made very well.
No, they're absolutely not. It's not quality garments, it's not quality fabric, and that just further contributes to the waste because even if you do try and wear something that you bought at a fast fashion retailer for more than 14 times, it's probably going to fall apart. And so that's another part of the problem.
Yeah, and other thing I always say, if you're not going to recycle that piece of clothing and it's super cheap, I'm like, wear it 14 times or 20 times and then cut it up and use it as a dust rag.
Yes, a cleaning rag, totally.
I'm like, it's not worth enough for me to worry about it. I'll just clean something with it. We bring our clothes to secondhand stores.
Mhm.
We donate our clothes to people in need.
Yeah.
Is there a way to recycle clothing so that they don't end up in a landfill?
There are very few ways, and I hope that it becomes more popularized. In the US, I think there's maybe one or two services that will collect your clothing, and really things that you cannot resell and can't donate is the type of stuff that you want to aim to send to these services. And they'll kind of just shred it up. I think what they make is something called shoddy, SHODDY, and it's just shredded textiles that they then use as like filling for stuffed animals or pillows or insulation for homes. But again, there's a lack of knowledge about those services. People don't know that they exist. They don't know that they have that as an option.
And they don't know where to bring those clothes and
Right.
those garments that can be cut into shreds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I literally brought a huge mattress-sized bag of clothing to the resale shop, and I didn't wanna bring it to some of the ones that we all know about, brought it to a specific one because the money and the proceeds go to a domestic violence shelter
Mhm.
and women in need, and so they take, gently used clothing, but I just can't bear to throw it in the trash, and I can't what do we do with all of it? What do we do with all of it, Sarah? What do we do with these clothes?
Yeah, there aren't a lot of good solutions. It's really hard. And people have to put so much time and energy into researching the right ways of doing it. And unfortunately, the systems just aren't in place yet to make that easy for us to do the right thing.
But you're trying to do the right thing, and the right thing is this: during the pandemic, you got laid off like so many people, but instead of just sitting around and eating chocolate, you started a slow fashion brand called SAV NYC. Actually, you had that in college, but you continued to just grow this brand, this slow fashion brand. Explain to us what slow fashion is.
Yeah, slow fashion is putting so much care into everything that you make. I am not producing a huge amount of stuff just to sell it really quickly and make money. I'm putting a lot of time and energy, a lot of thought into each piece that I make and making sure that there's the least amount of waste possible. And so I think a really good definition of slow fashion is just doing things at your own pace, like not following that crazy fast pace that the fashion world seems to think is necessary for the world. You're following your own pace, you're taking it slow, and that way you're not overproducing, you're not creating a lot of waste.
That's interesting. So fast fashion is like turn it and burn it, get it out there, wear it and toss it away, discard. Slow fashion is sustainable. It's
Thoughtful.
thoughtful. I love that. It just takes a minute, which I feel like you're being mindful in your
Yeah.
fashion with slow fashion. So when we talk about slow fashion versus fast fashion, where can we find slow fashion? The question is, who is doing slow fashion and how is this catching on?
The epitome of slow fashion are the small businesses, small business owners like myself who create all the garments in their personal sewing room. They don't have anything sent overseas. They're not using large factories to do big production runs. They're taking the time to create patterns, create garments specifically for their customers, and then they're doing made to order. So again, instead of producing a large run of like 30 garments you don't know that they're going to sell, you make one, you spend a lot of time, put a lot of thoughtfulness into creating it and making it really high quality. And then you see if people want to order it and you make them to order so that there's no waste because you're making exactly what you're selling.
No waste. No
Yes.
waste. So explain then, how does slow fashion help the environment?
Yeah, slow fashion, it comes back to thoughtfulness again. I think the people who shop slow fashion have much more of an appreciation for the garments that they're buying because they know the person who made it. They literally know whose hands touched that garment and spent time making it. They know the story behind it. So there's so much more connecting to the garment. It becomes a lot more meaningful to you. And in the end, you're going to take much better care of that garment. You're going to wear it 50 times, 100 times, not just 14 times. You're going to pass it down to your family, your friends. It's that meaningfulness, I think, is the key to sustainability. Connecting to your clothing means that you're not going to want to see it in the garbage ever.
Ugh, I love all of that meaningfulness, like so many things, even in just for me, I just moved, so I've been purging, and I have a lot of my mother's clothes, and they're hard to give away and get rid of. Because I have meaning behind it. Because number one, I saw her, I remember when she was wearing it, but then also number two, I know that they could service somebody else. And number
Yeah,
three, sometimes the materials are so amazing that I want to turn them in to something
yeah,
that I can wear.
right.
Your upcycling fashion in the slow fashion sense, are you using all 100% of thrift store clothing, or do you incorporate some new fabrics in?
I never use new fabrics. So mainly I source secondhand items, from giant thrift stores. I do a lot of digging to find some good stuff. And basically, I look for things that still have a lot of life left in them, but maybe aren't so special in any way. So, a lot of like plain t shirts, plain blouses. And then with my embroidery designs that I create, I add them to the garments to give more thoughtfulness to it so that when people shop, when I'm at markets and they look through my clothing rack that I have full of stuff, every piece is individual and interesting and people can really connect to some of them because of that unique embroidery design. And yeah, so that's my way of kind of bringing new life into them and continuing their life cycle.
So, as a one woman shop, you are just doing it all. You're sourcing and sewing and selling and marketing and all of the stuff. How has the response been to your DIY designer clothing?
I've had a really good response. I didn't really start to feel any kind of response until I got out into the world and started doing in-person markets because I sell online. But what really does well online are my scrap fabric patches, which are kind of just fun little accessories. But I don't feel like people connected with the clothing as much online. Once I got in person and people started looking at my stuff, I could see the reaction to the uniqueness of the pieces, like how people would stop and they would really look through the entire rack because every new item is something completely different than the last one.
Yeah, and I love people like you at the market when I see something old that's remade into something new. I mean, I sew, so I get ideas to do my own things, but I'm
Yeah.
all about upcycling a t-shirt, and I'm all about upcycling a t-shirt to wear for like a fancy dinner. All of a
Mhm.
sudden you have it's like a t-shirt and people are like, "What is that?" And you're adding fancy fabric to it. But what types of garments can people upcycle? And what can they do to them? So if you're talking to another creator and you want this idea to grow and grow and you want people to start doing their own upcrafting or refashioning, what do you suggest they do?
One of my favorite types of garments to play with is the men's button down shirt because I find so many of them at thrift stores and they're really versatile to play with. You can easily turn a large men's button down shirt into a cute little dress. My favorite thing to do with them is cut them up and re-sew them together as bucket hats. And I like to mix and match patterns. I've made little personalized dog collars out of them. It's about finding that piece in the thrift store that has so much potential to be a lot of new things, you know? And I feel like with the button down shirts, that's kind of my go-to piece for upcycling.
I love it. So tell me what you think about this because I have friends who are not creative or crafty and they definitely can't sew. But I encourage them find something that you love, come up with the idea, or find a friend that sews, get a neighbor that can sew, find a designer that'll do it for you, go to the seamstress down the street and say, "This is what I'm thinking. Can you do it?" What do you say to that?
I love that. Yeah, you should definitely try, to make your vision come to life because again, that goes back to the thoughtfulness. If you designed it and you made it happen, then you're going to care about that garment forever.
Sometimes people look down upon the handmade garment, meaning I'll make something and they'll be like, "Oh, you made that. That's cute." I mean, you could find it in the store. You could find it in a really high-end store. Nobody would know if it had that high-end fashion tag on it.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like, "What do you mean? Like this looks like a $300 pillow. Like what are you thinking?" And they're like, "Oh, it's cute." Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say. I think there may still be a bit of a stigma about sewing. Um, you know, it started out as being the only option, right? Before there was a Sears catalog to buy from and all that kind of stuff. But once kind of Sears came into play and you started to be able to order your clothes and clothes were being mass produced, I think the idea of sewing your own clothes became kind of like a show that maybe you weren't as wealthy as everyone else who could buy their clothes already made. And so maybe there's that stigma still hanging around a little bit for some people, and they think, oh, she or they can't afford to go to the store and buy the garment, so they have to make it themselves. But what those people don't understand is that it's probably way more expensive to make it yourself, and it takes way more of your time. But yeah, I think that might be where that comes from.
I think you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
People don't understand a handmade garment is so much more expensive and so much more luxury and so much more detailed and meaningful. And it's so much more creative. And if you're taking an old man shirt and turning it into something else, and I'm taking a t-shirt and turning it into a blouse, and they look like they could be sold at the highest end store, in New York or in Chicago, I think people sometimes it's gotta have a name. It's gotta have a label. And what I want people, and I think you do too, is to understand that this is a better way to wear your clothing.
No labels needed.
That's right. No labels needed. Let's not be label whores. Label is
Yeah.
over. Label is so out, right?
I could care less about a label.
I would rather wear something handmade, honestly. I only buy a unique piece that I know is handmade by someone or is special, like a one of a kind type of run. And you bring up a really good point. Back in the Gilded Age, the women were parading around in these amazing, gorgeous dresses with corsets and tons of fabric and just very elaborate. If you watch some if you want to go back into history, you can look it up into fashion books. But if you watch some programming, they'll reuse the garments. You'll see them wearing dresses over and over again
Yeah.
because they spent a lot of money on these handmade items. And back then, there was no fast fashion.
There may not have even been a sewing machine, so someone had to sit there and sew all that fabric together. So you think they're just gonna wear it once? No way.
Let's talk about everyday sustainable swaps. What does that mean?
I love talking about this. Everyday sustainable swaps are just little things that you can change in your routine. It's about unlearning the systems that we've been taught, right? Like, we've been taught that we need to buy a 24 pack of single use water bottles every week at the grocery store. So if we want to unlearn that, we can kind of realize that, oh, we can get one water bottle that we can refill thousands and thousands and thousands of times and never have to buy single use plastic water bottles again.
Give me some more sustainable swaps.
One of my new favorites are toothpaste tablets. Toothpaste tubes are actually not a huge amount of waste, but definitely contributes to waste is throwing out those toothpaste tubes when you're done with the tube. It's
Never thought
plastic,
about that. Yeah, I
right?
throw them out. I mean, I get excited that I use the whole entire tube. Like,
Yeah.
there's literally nothing left on the inside because I'm so crazy about getting everything out of the tube. But yeah, I never think about what happens to them.
Yeah, it just becomes another bit of waste in the landfill. So toothpaste tablets are dried little they look like breath mints, basically, pieces of toothpaste. And you pop them in your mouth, you chew a little bit, and then you start brushing and they foam up just like a regular toothpaste does. And so they'll come in a little paper wrapping and there is zero waste when you're done.
I love it. All right, let's talk about refill shops. So what is a refill shop? I don't know what it is, but I think I like it.
You're definitely gonna like it. Yeah, refill shops are just starting to come up in the US. I know Brooklyn alone only has 2 or 3. There should be more by now, I think. So basically, you can go in and you can get a refill of all of your essentials, like food essentials, home essentials, bath and body essentials. So, like hand soap, baking flour. You could get lentils, you can get pasta, laundry detergent, all of the essentials that you need. You can bring in an empty jar. They have like a bulk amount of all these items, and then you fill your jar. They weigh it for you, and you're on your way.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, so no packaging, no shipping.
So your desire to, create awareness about sustainability not only goes from fashion, but it goes into home goods and it goes into your living and it goes into everyday life.
It extends through everything because every little thing that you do really makes a difference. And I've actually been lucky enough to know that just by me making all these changes, the people around me have seen me making these changes and seen that it's actually not difficult. And, even with the refill stores, I get really high quality products that are healthier for you and the environment. And I've been able to see the effect that I have on others around me because they start to catch on and it spreads. So, like all these little things that you do wear off on the people around you. They get more people involved in sustainability and they really do make a difference.
And so what's the goal for your brand?
I would love to one day have my own store where people can come in, they could shop, they can bring in their well-loved garments that maybe have some stains or rips to be repaired. They could come take a class to learn how to repair them themselves and learn the proper way to care for their garments and which materials they should be buying that are better for their skin and the environment, So it would be a place for education, a place to connect with other like-minded people, a place to shop, and a place to repair.
You talked about something called visible mending.
Yeah.
Let me guess what it is, and then you can explain it. I'm gonna guess. I don't know. This is what I think it is. I have a pair of jeans that have a rip in the back, and I'm going to put a patch on it, or I'm going to stitch it up, or I'm gonna do something where I'm mending it, but you could see it?
Exactly. So visible mending is important because you can't always fix something and make it look perfect again, right? Like when you have a rip in the middle of your pant leg, you can't just add a new seam and make it disappear, Sometimes you have to do something that shows. So people come to that point and they're either going to discard of the garment forever, or you can put a really cute patch on it, or you could put a pop of colorful patterned fabric behind the hole and stitch it up and just have fun with it. And again, you get to customize it. You get to choose what you want to do with it. And it makes it that more meaningful. And you get to keep wearing your favorite pair of jeans that fit you perfectly.
Ah, this is why I brought it up, because I have a
Yeah.
favorite pair of jeans that have a hole right next to the pocket because they're stretchy and they
Right.
ripped, and that happens all the time. But I think if more and more people do it, then that trend just becomes cool. Like, oh,
Yeah.
look at my visible mending, right?
Right. Yes. And it's definitely starting to catch on.
So how can we as creators, and I know I keep going back and forth to somebody who's interested in how I want to be sustainable and what is she doing, then also to people who are creating, because we've got painters and we've got chefs and we've got sewists and we've got woodworkers listening and being part of this community. What can we all do to help be more sustainable?
I would say just be conscious of the materials that you're using and maybe get a little bit creative if you need to. You mentioned woodworking. If you're using, virgin wood, maybe think of a way or a place where you could find used wood and start upcycling it instead of buying new materials. Same for painters. Maybe find a way that you could find discarded paints that aren't fully used yet that you could use. There's just like all these ways. And what I love about sustainability is that it is so creative. You have to do a lot of creative thinking to find new ways of doing things. That would be my bit of advice, to just be conscious of how you're creating your art.
I love it. Okay, I want to do a speed round of all the things that you won't shut up about, because it's fun and it goes far beyond sustainability.
Yeah.
Except for this first one is composting. We can all do it.
Composting is a great way to reduce your amount of garbage that you're putting out every week. When food goes into the landfill, it doesn't get aerated properly and it creates a lot of greenhouse gases. But if you kind of throw it into a pile in your backyard and you mix it around every few days, it gets aired out, it decomposes properly, and you get beautiful, nutritious soil for your garden.
Dark chocolate, one of my favorite things on the planet. In fact, if this is a fantastic secret if people don't know about it, but once you go dark chocolate, get to 100%, you are in great shape. What do you think about dark chocolate?
Are you at 100%?
Yeah.
Wow.
My husband and I started dark chocolate 70%.
Yeah.
We went up to 85%. We got to 90%, and then we went 100, and we can't even go back to 80. It's too sweet.
Yeah. I think I'm in the 90s and I love it. It's just you get more of that rich flavor of the chocolate.
And you don't need a lot.
No, not at all.
Yeah, they say 1 square of dark chocolate is equivalent to eating like a spoonful or a quarter cup of blueberries, and we know that blueberries are high in antioxidants, which
Mhm.
means your 1 square of dark chocolate, you're getting those same antioxidants.
That is so interesting. I did not know that, but that's good to know because I don't like blueberries. So there you go. I'll just eat more chocolate.
And then, in case you don't know, people, Sarah is a bad ass because she has a black belt in Taekwondo.
Yep. Just one of my things as a kid, I went from ballet to playing the drums to taekwondo. Those were my after school activities. And yeah, taekwondo I stuck with for about 5 years. I got my black belt. It was kind of at that point that I was transitioning into doing fashion full time. So I moved on to fashion, but I think I'll always have those killer black belt instincts in me.
If you keep those up, keep those instincts up when you're doing your brand, I think you'll be just fine. All right, give us one last bit of creative, inspirational advice. What do you want everyone to know about creativity and sustainability?
I would say about creativity, get outside, get out of your head, do something you love. Sustainability, unlearn the habits that we've all picked up from society. Be open to unlearning. That's what I'll say.
Be open to unlearning, because I think really and truly that sustainability and creativity go hand in hand, because we need to figure out what to do with all this stuff and how can we reinvent it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sarah, if people want more info on you or SAVNYC, how can they find you? Give us your social media handles and website and anything else we need to know.
Yeah, my website is savnyc.com. That'll bring you right to my shop on Etsy and my Instagram handle, where you can find links to everything you'll need, is at SAV_NYC.
At SAV_NYC. Sara Vetzer, thank you so much for joining us on Creative Living.
Thanks, Jane.
Live better, creatively. For more inspiration, visit janeklaus.com. Thank you for listening.